open. I attended the 86 International Night, but I'm sure it was in place for probably 2 or 3 years before. So probably the first one is 82, 83. And it's one night during the 1 week-long EIS conference in Atlanta. It still is happening, and it's attended by the best papers submitted from the FETP programs. But at some point, everybody around noticed that one night was too small for such great work that was presented and competing for a spot in that night. So it had to do with that in the hallways of CDC, people were whispering the idea of concording the idea of a network of the FETPs. The FETP graduates had to also demonstrate. So I did that, but graduates of the Colombian FETP have done the same in El Salvador, and now, many years later, I cannot even count how many people have followed that path. So it's important, that milestone for the development of TEPHINET, being part of it, being sitting as equals around the table. Of course, of GENET and the CDC was essential to create the network. Without that leadership of EPO, Steve Thacker, it's long the list, including Mark White, of people who were very supportive of establishing this network. And there has to be somebody in WHO who really took on developing the commitment from the UN agency in charge of global health. So one of the first things that happened is that they made us part of the global outbreak alert and response network. I think that's one of the first achievements of this network, being sitting around that group of experts and being recognized as a resource. The 2005 International Health Regulations came about, and is now not whether the countries need FETPs, is that they are required to have not only laboratory capacity, but epidemiologic capacity. And it is probably an engine behind the development that we have seen, the skyrocketing of the FETPs. We are very thankful to our colleagues at WHO for that. It has also broadened the list of conditions that are reportable to allow for things that we cannot even anticipate what they are, right? The public health events of international concern. So what is it that we have to celebrate? Well, we have to celebrate that we have every other year a global conference with record-breaking attendance. That's success. And every other year there is a regional conference, 5 of them, right? So those are important milestones. But what is important is that these programs fulfill a very important function. Each of these abstracts and papers that we see, what they present is a showcase of effective government. Governments around the world doing what they are supposed to do. Not to look the other way around, but to take the bull by the horns and really take it down. That is what the public is expecting from their governments. And basically, we serve always the poorest of the poor. So this is a picture of an outbreak that we did in Colombia. And these are the poorest people in Colombia who are always suffering these epidemics. So it's that's what is supposed to happen, that the government meets those needs. So what we do is, while training people, we are doing what the governments are supposed to do. And that has an intrinsic value. It's not only training, but it has an important meaning. So I think that it's important, the sharing of information, the sharing of what works, the sharing of innovations, and the adoption of those innovations, the diffusion of those innovations that happens in the framework of the activities of TEPHINET. And that is something that we have to celebrate, because we really make, we bring to life the values of truth, the pursuit of scientific truth, and the stewardship of the trust of the public in the public health agencies. Without that, if we don't respond adequately to the situations, then the public will not trust the public health agencies. And that's a very important contribution of these programs. And that's what probably we need to insist when it comes to self-sustained development of these programs. Of course, we all strive for not only doing the work, but making it long-lasting and having implications for practice. Without publishing our stories, without publishing our work, it's like we did nothing. So I'm going to take the opportunity to bring about the idea that I set forward years ago of translating the effort that we do in the field to put a peer review journal or publication with the work of the FETPs. It's very important, because if you don't publish the details of what you did, not as much is learned from what you have done. There is no record, and there is no way to go and expand the knowledge. The abstracts is a good idea, but it's probably something that has to be written after you have published a paper. And we did that in Colombia with this HIV dialysis center outbreak. We invited the best, not because they have laboratory capacity, the CDC, but because they have epidemiologic capacity. The hospital infection program of the CDC sent Scott Friedkin, then an EAS officer. Now I understand he's a leader in infection control at CDC. As an EAS officer, he helped us understand the outbreak. And that paper got published simultaneously in Lancet and the MMWR in June 2nd, 1995. That really was our showcasing for the Ministry of Health. In 3 years in Colombia, I had to convince 3 ministries of health, different people, that it was worth investing in the FETP. And what was our showcase? These papers, and papers like this, because there was no dispute that there was an intrinsic value in investing in local capacity building. So with that, the challenges have been mentioned. I won't repeat them. We have to deal with things that really are killing people, non-communicable diseases, injuries, surveillance and control. And we have to deal with a lot of other issues. But the last bullet is what I want to emphasize. Dioniso has given us a number, more than 10,000, 11,000 graduates. We have to release the potential of this capacity to the full extent possible, so we can harness all the energy, the capacity that exists to translate knowledge and capacity into improvements of public health. Congratulations, TEPHINET. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much. Professor Mufuta.
I'll stand behind the flowers, Mark. You have to break the taboo. Dear friends, I just want to start by congratulating all of you for all the successes that we are here to celebrate. Over the past 20 years, we have seen the training programs in epidemiology and public health interventions champion a global network of 69 field epidemiology training programs working in more than 100 countries. And these programs are increasing, still increasing in numbers. When it all started in the 1996-97, there were very few programs and very few partners at the table. That's how it started. Today, I think you think there are more partners, more programs, and you are right to think so. But at the time, as a group of 3 public health schools without walls from the African region, we strongly supported the idea of creating forums which will create opportunities for our faculty and residents to share ideas, to present the work that they were doing in the field. Competing with the EIS program was just too difficult. We were starting, we needed a forum that understood where we were coming from and would develop us to become like or better than EIS. So I want to acknowledge really and praise all the founding members for their vision and sacrifice that they made to get us where we are today. It is befitting for me to specifically acknowledge 2 pioneers of TEPHINET, Dr. Mark White, who is sitting here, and Dr. Genal Redier, who inspired all of us and provided what was missing, which is institutional and leadership support that we needed for the creation of the intercontinental platform for networking our training programs focusing on epidemiology in the field. The formation of TEPHINET that time encouraged us to then create regional bodies. We created the African Field Epidemiology Network in 2005, starting as a regional subsidiary of TEPHINET to provide context-specific solutions to the needs of African programs. And I'm glad to say that that formation inspired other regions to create such bodies to be more context-specific to their own regions. So because of what TEPHINET did and encouraged us to do, I want, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the African Field Epidemiology Training Program, to extend our appreciation to the leadership of TEPHINET, led by many directors before, but specifically to Dr. Dionisio Herrera, who, through his continued support to African FETPs, we have been able to remain an integral part of the global network of field epidemiologists. AFENET has benefited a great deal in this partnership. Our shared goal is to build capacity through support of field epidemiology and laboratory training programs. Africa, through AFENET, has directly supported 31 field epidemiology training programs of the 69 programs that make TEPHINET today. We've done that through our 2-year programs, our intermediate and frontline programs, and through those we've trained today over 3,000 epidemiologists across Africa. The current conference is providing the opportunity for us to celebrate TEPHINET and its achievements, but it is yet again providing the opportunity that we created TEPHINET for, which is for our residents to share knowledge and work that they have done in the field, which was not possible 20 years ago. Our own residents, graduates, particularly in the African region, are part of this big conference. And moving people across continents to come here could not have happened if it was not for TEPHINET. The future of TEPHINET is bright. It can only be as bright as we collectively want it to be. As we expand to every country in Africa and beyond, our focus, I think, should be on the alumni that have been trained through the different programs. It's critical for us to build a functional FETP alumni network to serve as a response team ready to support ministries of health in the various issues in health regulations that Victor and others have referred to. So establishing alumni associations that are functional in our countries and coordinating their activities is key for our future. We see here a very clear role for TEPHINET, a significant role for TEPHINET in making sure that these associations are functional. In Africa, we are spearheading through AFENET the development of a continental rapid response corps to support surveillance and response to outbreaks in Africa and beyond. The impact of such an initiative will not only benefit Africa, it will benefit the rest of the world as we can move skilled staff